Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And so, you all asked for more NHRL content. I've got more Norwalk content coming fresh on the heels of their event this past weekend. So, today with me, I have Tom, who has the robot first drink of the day. And we're here to talk about robots today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we will definitely get into the event and, talking about that from your perspective. But before we do that, for those who may not be familiar with your robot, or just don't, know a whole lot about it, kind of tell me about like how you got started with this robot and NHRL and all of that.
Well, it started with my old job. I used to be a mail carrier, and it was nice listening to podcasts. And I was listening to a lot of the BattleBots podcasts, and then I um, discovered the Behind the Bots podcast. And then they did a podcast where they had Austin McCord on, and he was talking about NHRL, and I was just like, that's really interesting. So I made the 5-hour drive in my old electric car all the way down to Norwalk, Connecticut, and stayed for the whole event. And it was just the coolest thing. And I went to every event for that whole year. And um, eventually dragged my wife to go to one with me. And she kind of got bit by the bug too. And then I got inspired to just make my own. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to make. And the fight from not last season, but the previous season of BattleBots, where Slammo suplexed Pain Train. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to build a lifter bot that can suplex, and it went from there.
That's great. And especially because I love Slammo. I've said before that I don't know how, but I hope Slammo wins a giant nut someday,
Yes.
because it's a great robot. And Craig Danby is such a great person, and he deserves it. So that's wonderful. And it's so funny that you mentioned, like, how you got into it, because I find, especially with NHRL, that so many people go from just being someone who's a fan of the stands to saying, hey, I want to make my own robot. And it's extremely accessible, at that like range of doing a 3-pound robot or something like that, to take to Norwalk. So that's awesome.
And the new builder events are a great way to just test something out. Like when I first brought my bot, a lot of it was done the wrong way. And people were looking at it in the pits, and they were just like, this isn't gonna work. And I'm like, that's okay. If I'm gonna fail, I want to fail spectacularly. And it happened in my first fight. I got blown apart. But it's a good entry level, because even if you get sent down to the or the elimination bracket, um you may fight somebody around like equal skill level, and you'll have a good shot.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. This last event over the past weekend, there were certainly a lot of crazy matches. Some that I don't think that the result was expected. So you never know how it's going to go. So let's talk about this past weekend's event. Just kind of give me your perspective. How it was for you, not only specifically from your perspective, like with your robot, but just in general, how was the event?
It was cool. It was big. I guess it was their biggest one yet. We were watching the registrations when they first opened it up, and I just saw the number just keep climbing and climbing. And I kept seeing all of these really good bots, because it's the last chance to qualify for the finals. And I was just seeing the level of competition just keep going up and up. And um, it's very well run usually there. I mean, every once in a while they have a hiccup, but it's just because they'll get so many people that I think it just surprises them. Um, but every time we go, the facilities are updated and it's an easier experience. Um, like it's nice having the pits upstairs now. Um, and everybody down in the shop is very eager and willing to help you if something happens. Um, my first event, I did probably about 100 trips up and down the stairs to try to get everything fixed in between fights. But it was really well run. They have, they usually give you enough time, at least at the beginning of the day too. You have plenty of time in between your fights. Um, I had a bye for my first fight, and my potential first opponent, he was waiting for somebody, and they just never showed up. So we had to wait for them. So it was about 3 hours for our first fight, which I'm getting a lot better at being really restless about. The first, like the second event, I had the bye and I was just pacing the whole time and just like, I just want to get it over with. If I lose, I can fix it, but I just want to get it done with. But the the experience has gotten so much cooler for even like spectators and the builders, just even from like my first event in May.
Yeah, I mean, it looks so much fun, and the scale of everything is really impressive. I know that they showed some shots from the pit area, and I haven't been to Norwalk yet, but just looking at it, like I fortunately got to spend some time in the pits at BattleBots, but like after having seen that in person, there's a lot of robots, but at Norwalk, there's like double the amount of robots. They're much smaller, but there's a
Yeah.
lot more of them.
There was, I think, over 100 beetles that had registered for this event. Um, Maybe like 107, and about 100 of them showed up. And then there's a decent amount of 30s and 12s as well. But there's everybody has their own table. Everybody has, I think, between like 2 and 4 outlets. And if you are missing something, they always have it down the shop for you. And there's always people that are willing to help you out too if you have problems.
That's really nice. Yeah, I mean, it's what they've been able to accomplish there is really impressive. The level of competition, like everything, that the production quality of things, it's two streams running for
Right.
basically the entire day, and having, really high quality level of commentary on those streams and things like that. I mean, like I've told Luke and the folks from behind the bots for a while now, like just the job that they have done is so impressive. And I can't wait to get out there someday to see it.
It's an experience. It's very cool. The um and yeah, the commentary is great. And they finished at a decent time last event. Um, I think the first couple events I went to, they only had the one stream, and it was getting done at like 2:30 in the morning. And I was driving 5 hours back at the middle of the night. And it's, I mean, I think they finished it between what, midnight and 12:30. So at this last event, and which with 107 bots is really good.
Well, yeah, because you're dealing with, multiple fights, because you have, the primary bracket, essentially the winners bracket, and then you have the elimination bracket as well. So there's so many things happening concurrently, even though there's, more than one cage that fights are taking place in, it's still like it's a lot of fights.
And they really bumped up the quality of the titanium stream. Um, the and when I did go over for the steel arena, the fight over there for my grudge match, the arenas were in a lot worse shape too. So if you have somebody that's got really nice low forks, maybe it's better to be over in titanium where they see a little less damage.
Maybe, because yeah, I was watching the steel stream most of the day, and as it started to get into the later part of the day, I was like, that floor in the box looks like a Wolverine
Yeah.
attacked it.
Yeah. They, yeah, with those the melty brains, the liftoff bots, they leave some really cool looking circle gouges in the arena floor every time they spin up.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, they have the titanium wheels and they just sort of rip the floor apart as they spin, but you can always tell if they've been in there because you see like nice circles that are about this big around, just circles cut across the floor.
That is really interesting because like in my mind I wouldn't have like thought, oh, the wheels, to me I'm thinking, oh, they probably don't do much damage to the box at all, but it sounds like they actually do. Yeah, those bots were interesting, because when I was watching those matches, to me it reminded me of an air hockey puck just bouncing on all
Yes,
the corners.
yes. Here I had the privilege of going against the deep melt, the autonomous one, and it's very cool. It's you just hear the noise and you just kind of want to poke them and hope that they go flying off somewhere and don't hit you back when they rebound back. But yeah, they look just like air hockey pucks. Very
Yeah.
dangerous ones.
Yes, very dangerous ones that you would not want to put any body parts in the way of. That is for sure. I'm actually curious because I mean, I forget the name of it because, like, again, there's so many robots, and there's specific ones that I know, but the one that I think maybe Austin had brought in, that the one that sounds like a jet engine that's like so loud that I could barely hear them talking over the stream. How loud was it actually like there?
It was very loud, and it is a jet engine. Um, the Friday before they opened up the pits at noon, so you can do last minute work. They had tested it outside, out in the back of the building, and you could easily hear it all the way up at the front of the building. Um, we could hear it up in the pits over all the other pit noise too, and it really loud. It was really cool though because um, I was watching one of their fights too, and the one who they were fighting tried to get up close to it, and it just pushed them back. And but it was really loud, but very cool at the same time.
Yeah, that one I might have needed earplugs for. Most of them I can handle pretty well. But yeah, and then one of the fights, that you unfortunately lost was to the robot that eventually won the 3 pound, for that particular event.
Fully defined.
Yes, fully defined.
Yeah, yeah. And we we had a little bit of time between my uh after my fight ended and our fight, and he came over and he was checking out my bot and I was looking at his bot and we were just chatting, and everybody is so nice there. Like um if somebody really gets like damaged in a previous fight, then there's sort of like the unwritten rule where you kind of drag your feet long enough so that they have time to get in there and fix it, because nobody wants to fight one that's not working 100%. I think just about everybody there would rather give their opponent an extra 20-30 minutes than get a forfeit, because I mean that's what we all go there to do, show up and break each other's toys and fix them and do it again.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And like I told you, I mean, I had not seen fully defined. I mean, like maybe I had and I just hadn't remembered, but before that event, and it was a beast. I
Yes.
mean, it was just doing really well.
The the only thing that I had going in my favor in that event or in that fight was he hit my wheels and a chunk of the rubber jammed up his weapon. And but I was like, this is gonna be my first loss. I'd rather just tap out early. And I could have probably dragged it out to 3 minutes without his weapon, but it's just like I had no idea. So I'm just like, no, 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 tap, tap. I don't feel like repairing everything today.
Yeah, and that's an interesting mechanic that is, a little bit unique to Norwalk is the tap out. Because I was talking about that with someone else the other day, because everybody always says, BattleBots doesn't have that because you don't tap out in BattleBots. But it's an interesting point though of having something like that because you have so many fights and do you really want to risk like your robot being super damaged, or would you rather just stop? Like it's a really good thing to kind of think about.
My third fight against Camino, I lost my forks in like the first 35, 45 seconds, but I was already in the elimination bracket. So I was just like, well, I'll just keep driving into them. And I ended up getting the judge's decision, the split decision, which was like 9-8, 8-9, 8-9. So it could not be any closer. But it was just like, well, I'm it's gonna be the end of the day if I don't give it a shot. So but that's one of those times where it was worth just and like, well, I guess I'm gonna repair everything.
Yeah, you have to figure out what's going to be the best strategy depending on where you're at. Are you going to for sure have more fights, or is it like you either win this or you're done? So
Yeah,
you kind of have to pick and choose.
yeah. That was one of those ones where I was just like, all right, let's go. Let's give it a shot.
You never know. Yeah, no, that's super interesting. Now at this point, what is there a next event that you're planning on being at?
I'd like to do January, because January is going to be new bots again, and I have a few silly ideas that just might be for fun, or maybe even just grudges, but it depends. I don't know what a work schedule is going to look like out that far, and we'll
How
see.
how long does it, because I mean obviously like that I'm trying to devise coming up with my own 3 pound bot, but I mean about how long does it take one to create and put together a 3 pound robot?
Um, when I built my first one, it was YouTube videos and just sort of asking a few people. So I really didn't have any clue what I was doing. And a lot of my bot is built on sort of on a budget as well. So it took me a while. Um, I had probably been saying I wanted to bring it to Norwalk for, 3, 4 months or so. And then I heard about the new bot one. I'm just like, okay, this is what I'm aiming for this event. And now in between events, I try not to change too much in between events. Um, because if something's going to go wrong, I'd rather have the fewest variables. Um, like my last event, I tried a belt drive wheels, um, just two motors and then belts between the front rear and the front wheels to get a 4-wheel drive. And it just did not work well. And so I went back to the 4 motors 4-wheel drive for this one. The, but I mean, if you're building something super competitive, it'll probably take you longer and you'll want to CAD everything up and get parts from, um, have them pre-made for you. But if you're just doing like I did for my first one with cutting boards and hand tools and um, uh, wood screws and everything like that, and just basic servos. And I had my tires are just RC car tires, from a car that I just happened to have up in storage. So I threw those on, but so I mean it's possible to do it on a budget, and quickly, but usually it suffers if you do it too quickly.
I would imagine so. It really depends on what you're going for because I mean, even at the BattleBots level, I know builders who, are super competitive and, that's really important to them to bring like the highest level robot that they can, and others that still want to put together a good robot, but are really more in it just for the fun of building and, competing against other teams and things like that. So I guess it really depends on what you hope to get out of it.
Yeah. I went for my first one just for fun, just to say I had done it. And did better than I thought it was going to. So then I came back. I had to miss the summer event because it was the busy tourist season. And then it was just, I want to bring like a different type of style of bot. Um, I still, I I never go into a fight wanting to lose, but at the same time, if my opponent is tipped over and the house bot can't do it, I'll go over and do it just because it's having fun. And I mean, the first event I went to, I did that against Scrambled, and Scrambled is a fantastic bot. And they, I got them tipped over. They were doing the thing on their face, and the house bot couldn't tip them over. I tipped them back over, and they just dissected me, and I got the judge's decision. And but yeah, and that team was so super nice at the end. We were just like, whoever won that, we had no idea, but they would deserve it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm also curious, because we've talked about this a little bit just from a more, a fan perspective, but thinking about the upcoming December event with the championships, even for me only having watched NHRL matches for a short time, I am so excited. Like, I think that this event is going to be insane. There are just some crazy good robots that are going to be in these championships. As someone who's been in the pits with some of these teams, what do you think about the December event?
it's gonna be it's gonna be very cool. The level like of competition, I think, just really went stepped up this year. The Brazil bots that qualified, they are so good and they're so unique. Like they're beater bars, but like one of them has the twist. I think it's um I can't remember who it is. Carmen maybe has like the beater bar that has a twist to it. Um and they hit hard, they're really well driven. Um and then like fully defined qualified, and that is a beast. It I'm just he was showing me some of the pictures from like going through like 3 mil titanium, and you're just like, I'm glad you beat me quick and oh, got it done with. Um, even like some of the ones we haven't seen since the beginning of the year, since they qualified so early, like Silent Spring. Um, it is going to be weird not seeing Shred It Bro. Because that's usually a staple of the finals. Um, and there's just so many good ones. Like Crash Fest, I he qualified in May, and he's a lifter bot, and it's just so cool seeing another control bot in there. Plus he's a very nice person. Whenever I have questions, I always go over to him in the pits, and I'm just like, all right, I've got another dumb question for you. He's like, all right, I can help you out. So it's going to be so cool to see, especially those 30 pounders hit hard too. Um, and with the two big cages now on the main stage, they should be able to get done at a nice, reasonable time too. And last year they had the problem where they had the Beatles, but they had two stages for Beatles in the December, so they could knock them out quick. But they only had the one big stage, and they had 12s and 30s that needed to be in that cage. So it should be nice and smooth this year, and it's going to be really competitive and really fun to watch. I'm hoping to make it for it.
Yeah, I wish that I could. I'll definitely be watching the stream, because it's just, I mean, I'm really, really excited for it. Almost excited as I am for BattleBot. So, yeah, that definitely should be a good one. Especially like you mentioned the Brazil bots. In fact, I was just watching. I don't know if you happen to catch it or if you're familiar with it. the Brazilian event that they were live streaming today, which was RoboCore, and seeing the, the bots that are down there in Brazil is just a whole different like thing. There's a lot of events out there, and it's great that so many of them can do these streams, like Norwalk. I didn't even realize that they were live streaming this Brazilian event until today, so that's pretty exciting as well.
I was catching up on sleep today from Norwalk.
I'm sure. I bet that is a long weekend.
We got there, the pits open at 8 and on Saturday. So we got there around 7:30 and we were there until midnight or so. And it's a long day. It's at the beginning of the day, it's a lot of waiting for your next fight. And but then right near the end, when it starts to get less people, it's you get that 20 minutes. And just I'm glad I'm usually eliminated around that point because because it seems like every time I'm in a fight, it takes me half an hour or so just to do the basic repairs. And and at that point, you're just kind of like, okay, this is too much. I need to take a breather, but I can't because I only have a certain amount of time. And I always feel bad because the desk, they'll be like, all right, we need a status update for first drink of the day. And I'll be like, all right, I need another 10 minutes. And they're like, okay. And then I'll get back to them 20 minutes later. Be like, we need another status update. And I'm like, just another 5 minutes. I have to make sure it works.
That is too funny. And that's something that actually is really interesting to me. And I mean, I'm not sure if it's just because like typically the damage isn't as much or what it is, but like in battle bots, they typically make multiple versions of the robot because of damage, and it's just easier to, run a completely fresh robot or even a completely fresh frame. But that doesn't happen at Norwalk.
There's a few teams that'll have a couple. I know the Wumpus, and it's actually one of my favorite bots there. And I'm so happy I got to fight him because he's the shell spinner. He showed up with 2 complete ones because I know he had some sort of gremlin in our fight where it just wasn't getting up to full speed. And he couldn't figure out what it was after our fight, and he just went to his second bot. And then he ended up winning the next 2 in a row. But there's a few people who do bring like an extra. I try to have enough spares where I could build a second, especially after the May event. I used every single spare after my first fight. But there's enough. Yeah, there's people who bring 2 separate ones. I think I had enough for 2. I did run out of one piece, one of my pieces, so I had to go all the way. I had just thrown extra stuff together in my tub, and I had wheel guards left over from my May event, and I had to throw those on. But yeah, there's the nice thing is it is easy for just one person to do all the work themselves on those. With the Beetle, you can usually do all the work like a 1-person team. I'm glad I have my wife up there with me because she is the one that like double checks everything before we go downstairs. She's like, okay, do you have your weapon lock? Do you have the little key to turn it on? Do you have is the battery plugged in? Do you have the mini bot? Do you have your controller? And did you test it in the box? And she's the one who does all of that for me while I'm panicking. She's got the level head.
Well, that's great. It's good to have at least one other person to make sure
Yeah.
that everything is running smoothly.
And then there's people who was it Ethan, I believe, showed up with 4 bots, 4 beetles. And then he was helping the Milk Tank team a lot. And I have no idea how he does it. It's after a day like that, I would need to sleep 2 or 3 days and just like, okay, I'm done. Somebody drive me home.
Yeah, exactly. That's crazy. No, it definitely it was an awesome event. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it, and I do think that, Norwalk just keeps getting better and better every time that I see it. And I think, from what you've said, it kind of feels that way as a competitor as well.
Yeah. The 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 arenas look nicer. It was it was tough to see the old look go, but I really do like the new look of the commentators booth up there. Um, and they all do such a great job. Um, After the May event, like the kind words by the casters, um, kind of just are what got me back. Because even after something goes awful, I got blown up, and they were just like, well, is he an engineer or anything like that? He's like, no, he's just a guy, and he decided to finally make one. And you're just like, yeah, that's and they're just always so nice. Everybody there at Norwalk is nice. Um, like everybody down in the shop and just everybody. It's really nice. They make it a very welcoming environment for especially new people. Like um like you can ask any dumb question you want and nobody ever makes you feel like you're dumb for asking that question. Like Gil or Jim or any of the people up at the desk upstairs or um like Sam, I ordered some forks and I have no way to drill AR 500, and I sent him a message and he was like, yeah, if you send them to me over at Norwalk, we'll get them drilled and you can pick them up at the event. And I mean, it's something that I think a lot of competitions wouldn't do. And it's really nice that they do that to help people out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually met Gil in line at the BattleBots taping. So it's just funny you randomly meet people places, but Norwalk was absolutely representing in Vegas a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few like non-spoilery pictures, and I'm just like, oh wait, I kind of recognize them. And then with Luke and um Lindsay and Chris were all there too, and I'm just hoping to hear about all the stories like after everything is done and aired, and then I can hear about all the cool stuff that actually happened behind the scenes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I'm definitely planning a special episode once the season is over to talk openly about the season and things like that once that is a thing that I am allowed to do. So all right, well, I am definitely excited for the next couple Norwalk events. Hopefully I'll be there in 2023. That's certainly the plan at this point. But I so appreciate you coming on the show and talking about your robot, because I think Norwalk's great, and I think it's just an awesome way for people to kind of do something more in the community and build their own robots and see what you can do.
Yeah, and it's if somebody's ever new and like reach out to people. I know, I mean, I'm not an engineering mastermind by any means, but I mean anybody can ever reach out to me, or there's so many other builders that are so willing to help new people. um, and we just want to see you have a good time, and like seeing somebody new get their first win, um, like the folks over at Ground Control, the previous event. um, and then there was the two kids from Vicious Pup. They built their first bots, and they had a rough first fight, and then they came back and got their first win, and just seeing how happy they were, it's just like, yeah, it's awesome seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many kids that come to Norwalk and are involved with the robots, and I think that that's just great. We need to see more of that, to see these younger kids getting involved in combat robotics. And like you said, it's overall such a welcoming community, like
Right.
everywhere, whether it's Norwalk, whether it's BattleBots, it's all very welcoming, and I just love to see it.
Because even if you have a bad day fighting robots, You always have fun up in the pits, and you get to hang out with all of your friends. And if you didn't know that, if they weren't your friends when you got there, they're going to be your friends when you leave. Even after they blow up your robot, they're going to come over and want to check out the damage and chat with you. And it's a very awesome community.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, for anybody that's watching the show, if you're like, hey, maybe I want to build my own robot, do that. Like, you know, there are
Yeah.
people that will help you. Please do that. And you know, continue to let me know what you want to see on the show. Do the whole like, subscribe, all that good stuff. There will definitely be more Norwalk content coming your way, more BattleBots content coming your way, and whatever else I can think of from a combat robotics perspective. So I hope everybody enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time on the show.